Hour. Joining us now, freshly minted from a forum last night, another forum, candidate for State Senate, Republican, District 11. That's Chesterfield, Colonial Heights, and Amelia County. Amanda Chase with us now. Amanda, good to have you back.
Hey, it's great to be back.
Okay, you guys had a forum last night with all these forums going on now. You guys had a forum last night, and give me an update.
Well, the bottom line is this. I mean, I'll just cut to the chase for you. Senator Martin basically gave a lot of excuses of why he thinks that he hasn't gotten things done over the last 30 years. He had a lot of excuses. I look over, he's chairing health and education, yet I pointed out last night that we're ranked 40 out of 43 by the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools. I mean, if you're heading that committee, it's longevity is important, but even more important is effectiveness, and I think that clearly came out tonight. He has a lot of excuses as why things are not getting done, but nothing's getting done. And then to my right, Barry Moore, he was the first one to get each of the questions the way we drew last night. Barry went first, I went second, and then Steve, that was the order of the questions that were being asked. Barry went first, and I think inexperience was very evident. He understands a surface level of the issues, but he doesn't understand the in-depth details of each of the issues just because he hasn't been there. So I think it was very evident last night. I think our campaign came out as a clear winner. We visibly had more people in the room cheering us on. I think we had a lot of good points to make last night. I mean, I support term limits. You've got a guy that's been in there for 30 years, career politician. With Dave Bratt's race, which I was a part of, it's very clear people want change. Do they want someone that's inexperienced in there? No, they don't want someone with an experience. They realize that you have to have some type of experience, some type of knowledge, or you will be led instead of leading. I will go in there not as a career politician, someone that's with experience, someone that's worked for congressmen before, someone that's worked for governors, legislators. I'm respected by that community already, and even getting things done behind the scenes. And so I think I was the clear winner last night. I think we did a great job last night.
All right, well, Amanda Chase, look, in all fairness, Barry Moore, one of the three candidates for State Senate. By the way, this is going to be decided in a Republican primary on June 9th. It's not 50% plus one. It's plurality, not majority. So technically, three people you could win with 33.5%. Steve Martin, candidate, is the incumbent. Also, Barry Moore, businessman, is in the race. Now, in all fairness, what Barry Moore is saying, he's saying, look, you're asking for change, but he's like, if you're going to get change, you got one guy that's been there 28 years, and then you got a hardened, paid political operative, Amanda Chase. She's just part of the whole system. If you're going to get change, he says, vote for me. I'm change. I'm from outside the system. And he says, you're a hardened, paid political operative. How do you respond to that?
Well, like I did last night, I think that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. This country was founded on apprenticeships, people learning how things work. I mean, I don't know how you're going to affect change if you know nothing about the system. I mean, if I'm going to get someone to repair my car, I'm not going to go to my plumber who has no idea what he's doing. I did not get involved because I love politics. I got involved with politics because I own a small business and I have a family of 4. And every time a politician makes a decision, it makes or breaks my family. It makes or breaks my business. So if you look at the why did I get involved? I volunteered for numerous campaigns, working 80 hours a week, not getting paid anything. Just ask Ken Cuccinelli's campaign. I put in plenty of hours with them, and I was recognized for my leadership. I have a history and an experience of getting the job done. They asked me to come on as first as staff and later as leadership. I mean, I think I was recognized for someone that knows how to get the job done. And so I was brought on just as, Barry sells cars and makes a living. I can also make a living too. And he has hired himself a political operative who used to be Steve Martin's campaign manager for 10 years, and that's who he's hired to run his campaign. So I think it's pretty hypocritical of him to say, political operatives are bad, they're paid. Well, then what are you doing? So, and people want to know that when they give or donate to a campaign, that money is they're a good steward of that money, and that's what you do. A job is only as good as the person that's holding it, the integrity behind that person. I haven't given him a hard time recently because he's a car salesman. He sells cars, and that's great. That's how he makes a living. My husband is also in the car industry. If it weren't for car sales, it affects my family too. So I'm all for car sales. I'm all for selling cars, but I think we got to look at the integrity of the person. We need to look at the position. Barry keeps referring this to as a job, and he wants each of the candidates to go to his website that's paid for and authorized by Barry Moore and fill out this job application. Well, this is not a job. I think I mentioned this the other night. I think you liked it. It's not a job applying for McDonald's. It's an opportunity to serve the people, which I have done behind the scenes for 7 years, fighting for these causes, fighting to reduce taxes, trying to get the right people elected that will do the right things. Now, does that always work out? Not always. And in the case of Dave Bratt, I was able to step in and help Dave Bratt. I mean, you got to look at the value of what we're doing. And I don't expect Barry to understand that because he's never even voted in Republican primaries. There's no record of it according to the State Board of Elections. So I don't expect him to understand the process.
All right. So you said your husband sells cars, Amanda. So what is just so I know offhand, what does your husband do?
My husband works in the finance industry, works for Toyota and Lexus Financial Services. He actually finances floor plans for the dealership. So the car dealers are actually his customers.
District 11 Senate nomination that will be decided June 9th. Now, Amanda, I just have to ask you this question. Then we got to get off this and move on. But how did they come up with the word hardened paid political operative? Why are you hardened?
Okay. Now, let me just talk to you about that a little bit. Okay, so I got involved in politics 7 years ago. I could have chosen to sit on my sofa like a lot of people do and just stick my head in the sand and move forward. But I chose to get involved, volunteer, and make a difference. So, I mean, I think it's unfair to be calling me a hardened political operative. I mean, how am I hardened?
Well, look, they call me the Godzilla talk radio in Virginia. Some people say it's because I have a big audience, and my wife says it has to do with my waistline. So you never really know how these people come up with these names. I'm good with Godzilla. You ought to be good with Harden. Now, let's get to this race. Look, you got a three-way race. You got a 28-year incumbent, Steve Martin. He's really taking this race seriously. I got him right now at about 50%, but you and Moore are splitting the vote. I don't see the pathway to victory when you got two challengers splitting the anti-incumbent vote. How does Amanda Chase win this race?
Well, it's all about turnout, and you and I both know that. It reminds me a lot of the lieutenant governor's race that took place back in 2012. And there were 7 candidates running, and Steve was running in that race, and I was running Susan Stimson for lieutenant governor, and Susan finished second. Martin finished dead last. So I would say history has a way of repeating itself. I was, political director for Susan Stimson, and we actually beat Steve in his hometown of Chesterfield County, my hometown of Chesterfield County. Why is that? Because I am from Chesterfield. I am in touch with people. They see me as a mom in the community. I used to run every morning. That's what I've been campaigning about. I used to run every morning with the leaders of the PTA that live in my community. I have a very large church, that has 3 or 4 different offshoots. We're very involved in our church. We're very involved in our community. I used to be the neighborhood swim team coach. I have fought zoning cases in my neighborhood. They know me. I know them. They don't know Steve Martin. They just don't. Senator Martin is just out of touch. He's out of touch with women. He's out of touch with his colleagues. He's out of touch with voters. He's out of touch with his own party. And, he's out of touch with his creditors. He's out of touch with the truth. I just got to be honest with you. I mean, my eyes were opened when I worked for Congressman Randy Forbes, and I saw him in action, in depth, behind the scenes. I could not believe that he would come out. I know you remember this, in February 17th of 2014, his famous quote that he made out there about women as hosts. He said, "I don't expect to be in the room, nor do I anything to prevent you from obtaining a contraceptive. However, a child does exist in your womb. I'm not going to assume a right to kill it just because the child's hosts, some refer to them as mothers, don't want it." And that resulting uproar, it made national news. He wants to know why he has such great name ID. Well, maybe it's because it made it all the way to the national news. It made it all the way to other countries. And Martin became the butt of late-night talk show jokes. And even female colleagues, who I know very well in the General Assembly, they demanded an apology. I mean, it's just, there's a lack of discernment there of knowing what to say and what not to say.
All right, look, Amanda, I got to get out. I'm going to get a response from Steve Martin on that. But in his defense, I mean, that people say things, they get tired, they say things they don't mean, and I think he's apologized for that. But look, I get where you're coming from. I want to thank Amanda Chase for being with us. June 9th is the primary. Steve Martin, the incumbent, Amanda Chase, Barry Moore. Amanda, thanks for being with us.
Always my pleasure, John. Have a great day.